Do you like your career? Really? Do you want to change it? Well, you're at the right place. We can help you. Here at Wema DevOps, we can train you. We can help you to not only just change your career, but also to actually succeed in it. Welcome to Wema DevOps.
Join a thriving community of learners and professionals at Wema DevOps, where you can get training, coaching, and counseling on your journey into the DevOps industry. Register now at wemadevops.com and become a DevOps engineer today.
Yeah, so like Ken said, I am an Associate DevOps Engineer currently at a company called CoStar Group, which is a company in a private sector company that is based in DC. We mainly sell data on commercial real estate to brokers within that industry. So yeah, just to tell you guys a little bit about myself, I graduated from the University of Maryland with both a BS in computer science and also an MS in computer science as well. This is kind of just, the path that I went through. It's okay if you didn't go through the path, the degree path, and it's also okay, just as Jensen said, if you just went through, a boot camp, right? So yeah, I actually focused for my master's in computer graphics. So y'all can ask me all about that if you guys want later on. A few of the hobbies that I have include computer gaming. I love listening to EDM. And I also learned how to, DJ from a school club. So just some cool fun facts about me. I love wearing, cargo pants. I like also following, the latest news on the latest military tech, especially with our fighter jet aircraft or just our, aircraft in general. I lived my whole life in the state of Maryland, so, I got a lot of Maryland pride. So a good chunk of us are from Maryland, so yeah, love that. And yeah. I'm gonna be talking about the various tools that we use in the DevOps industry. And what's funny about this is there's actually a whole like periodic table of DevOps tools, and you might even recognize a ton of the stuff that I'm about to share. It's like, there's just a whole bunch of tools out there. And so what we specifically use for my company is just this huge palette of just straight up just tools. We have a lot of APMs, application performance measuring or metering tools, like Grafana, Datadog, Kibana, and Dynatrace. We also use a lot of tools for communication. We have Teams for just overall, just, team member communication. We also use Confluence for our documentation for the different processes that we've, had to make for, repeatability and stuff like that. We have Jira for ticketing. So every time we receive a task, we use Jira for, for to allow people to report, certain things that need to be done, and we are able to use Jira to also assign different engineers different tasks and also update on the progress made on specific tasks. We also have PagerDuty. For those of you guys who are already in DevOps, you guys know the pain of using PagerDuty. PagerDuty we use to alert us every time something goes down for somebody who is on call for that specified amount of time. For cybersecurity, we actually use Vault for secret management and Wiz for image scanning, container scanning for vulnerabilities. We also have a couple of IAC tools, infrastructure as code tools. We use both Terraform and Helm charts to shape, not just Kubernetes deployments on Kubernetes, but also just like infrastructure and like other, like aside from Kubernetes, we also manage a ton of EC2 instances, Route 53s and F5s and all sorts of stuff like that. Just a whole bunch of stuff that gets managed by code. Um, we also have a bunch of other tools for infrastructure management. We got Isinga, we got Chef, Confluent, and also vSphere. Um, and we got a ton of, deployment pipelines hosted on both Jenkins and Azure DevOps pipelines, both hosted and on-prem. For our CI/CD tools, we use a lot of Argo CD for GitOps processes, and that is a really good tool because it allows us to detect any commits in our Helm charts or in our, various, repositories, and it just kind of applies those changes automatically upon commit to our various Kubernetes clusters. We also have rollouts for, to be able to roll out with different strategies to our various Kubernetes clusters. Really good tool for that. Ansible, to kind of just determine how our infrastructure is supposed to look like. It's actually supposed to be an IAC tool, but I kind of just you know wanted to group it in with the CI/CD tools, just because it is used a lot in pipelining and also
Ah
deployment
oui, c'est.
as well. And so yeah, um, for our we do a lot of coding as well as infrastructure management. So for our coding, we do a lot of bash scripting. We actually host our repositories on Azure DevOps. These are all Git repositories, although some of our code repositories are in TFS, which is an ancient code versioning software that Microsoft first came up with before Git came along, I think. And our language of choice is usually Go, because that's also what Kubernetes is written in, and a bunch of other CI/CD tools are also written in as well. We have a lot of content delivery network management tools. We have the most notable ones that we use are Akamai and F5s. Um, every time we create a build from our every time we create a build from any of our tools and software within the organism that we have, every time we want to make a build, we usually put that in JFrog Artifactory, right? And that's where we store all of our build artifacts. Um, a lot of our software that a lot of the software that we create have JavaScript front ends and also C# backends. So we use a lot of NPM and Yarn for package management. And then for our like architecture within our software organism, we use just a ton of lambdas, a ton of simple queue services from AWS, Elasticsearch, ECS, and also S3 buckets, right, within our organism. Very, very complex organism. Um, and then also for our infrastructures as a service, we use EKS to host some of our hosted Kubernetes clusters, and also ECS for our various VM boxes that we just have sitting out there for our various use cases. So yeah, this is just an overview of all the various DevOps tools that we use. And so yeah, that's on a day-to-day, we mess frequently with every single one of these tools almost every single day. We also like to manage our work with the Agile development framework. And so we like to use a lot of Scrum. And so with that, my day-to-day schedule involves a lot of Scrum ceremonies. So in my company, we do 3-week sprints. And for our DevOps team, we actually have just one technical team lead and no project manager or no product owner, none of that. The client is really just, ourselves really, and just our internal devs. And we kind of just have one technical team lead that just tells us, introduces each task and kind of just assigns them off. So we have our daily stand-ups, the thing that we do pretty much every single day. It occurs daily. This is kind of like your typical agile, Scrum, daily Scrum. And this is when each person discusses what they accomplished the day before, what they plan to accomplish today, and what is blocking them from accomplishing their tasks, and what they feel blocked them yesterday, and what they feel might block them today, right? We do this mainly because we want to see where each engineer is in terms of their, tasks. And if we can also help one another in terms of what kind of blockers are blocking us from not getting our tasks accomplished today, right? And we're here to kind of alleviate the risks of that happening. And yeah, we're just kind of there to help one another. Um, we also have our sprint retrospectives. This happens usually at the end of each sprint. My team likes to do sailboat retrospectives. And so with this, we like to categorize our feedback into four different categories. We have propeller slash wind, what moved the team forward, what boosted our team's progress. We also have life preservers, what saved the team. When it comes to, what difficulties our team experienced, what actually helped with that, right? And also anchors, what slowed the team, what held the team back. And then rocks, what are some risks that can cause the whole boat to crash? I like to think of the analogy of the team just sitting on a boat, trying to get to the island where the treasure is, right? Um, Propeller and wind will always boost the boat towards that island. Life preservers will save us once, if in the case one of us goes overboard. Anchors obviously slow the boat down, and rocks, that's where, our boat can sink if we crash into them, right? So how this ceremony works is first we have team members kind of blindly putting in their own feedback anonymously. They get their own allotted time to do that. And then at some point, once everybody is ready with their feedback, we actually reveal what everybody put down. And we go through pretty much what each person put down as our wind, life preserver, anchor, or rock. Um, we discuss, each of them, and we kind of discuss like, hey, this was a big problem, or hey, this was a big boost. And we try to see if, there's anything that we want to continue doing and or things that we need to change up for the sprint ahead. So yeah, that's pretty much what our sprint retrospective is for. We also have sprint planning. This occurs at the beginning of each sprint, and this is when each person or each member will provide an overview for all the stories that they have for this sprint, and they are also given the opportunity to ask questions for any of the user stories they have. User stories are pretty much just the task that each person is given to complete within the duration of the sprint, right? This is when a lot of questions can be asked. This is when a lot of details can be specified for the task ahead for our engineers. So this is a good time to get any misconceptions out of the way, right? We also have story pointing. This occurs also at the beginning of each sprint before sprint planning. And this is when we assign each story with story points. And story points is really just a measurement of how difficult or how long a story would take. What my team does is my team kind of likes to just, we kind of bring over, uncompleted stories from the previous sprint. And then we also go over stories for the current sprint that have not yet been assigned to any of our engineers. This is kind of also we also like to implement story poker, where we go through each story and we figure out like, hey, is this more difficult or less difficult than we anticipated, or if this is a story that was unassigned. This is when we vote on how many story points we should assign each of these new stories. And so we like to use a story point poker, where each team member blindly like votes on how high a story should be story pointed. And then we both reveal our votes, at some point, and then we discuss like, hey, some people think it's high, some people think it's low. How do we, find a common ground, discuss it a little bit, and finally come to, an agreement of how difficult a story actually is. And then we also have sprint demos. This is super fun. It always occurs at the end of each sprint, and this is when each team member gets to demo something that they've worked on for the entire sprint. Something cool that they just want to show off to the rest of the team that they believe would be helpful moving forward for the entire team. I've actually demoed a little something here during a sprint demo. I once had we just to give a short little summary about what I did here. I had a Git repository that I made myself, and I had a bunch of Terraform code that kind of deploys Akamai cloudlet policies that use a provider that allows a dynamic ACL uh, for some of our like IPs that we want to be allowed for some of our Akamai properties. So yeah, just something that I demoed a while ago. Other parts of a DevOps job, they include getting certified. I'm actually on track to complete the Certified Kubernetes Administrator certification, but as an Associate DevOps Engineer, I'm also required to get the CKAD certification and the Certified Cloud Practitioner for AWS. My company pays for LinkedIn Learning and a Cloud Guru, which is kind of like our training programs to get certified in all three of these certifications. So that's just another part of, a DevOps life. And so every week I get an allotted amount of time to study for these certification exams. And also, part of being a DevOps engineer means that sometimes you will have to go on call, and sometimes you'll have to be the release engineer for, the release of all the code that has been changed for a sprint, right? So on-call shifts, we each take turns. We get notified on PagerDuty and Teams when something goes wrong. When it's my shift, I'll be the one alerted for anything that goes wrong, and I'll be there to fix whatever goes wrong, right? And so common pages that I get here and there are machines using VMs or Kubernetes clusters using too much CPU or memory for a node or for a machine. Or a machine in production actually goes down and I have to go in there and restart it. How release looks like is that every sprint, at the end of each sprint, we want to deploy code that the devs wrote, and we want to push that out to production. We take turns being the release engineer, sprint by sprint, and we do what's called blue-green deployment, where we have 2 lanes of production, and we have one lane that is online and one lane that is offline. We actually deploy all of our new changes to the offline lane, and then once we are ready, we actually flip the lanes so that our latest changes come online and all of our traffic is routed there. And then we have an offline lane where we can, test, and test our newest changes and stuff like that. So yeah.